So Todd, it's been such a journey working with you in the last few years. It probably seems longer than that, but you spent what decades running Fresca Foods and recently completed a successful exit. We had a very amazing journey together in the recent times and kind of going through that. I'd love to unpack both the business aspect as well as the personal side of your experience, if I may.
Oh my gosh, I'm thrilled to participate. Thank you.
There you are. So take us back to, and it's a very interesting story of how you got involved with Fresca, which was not called Fresca, and you certainly had a bit of a surprise when you took over the business. Walk us back to that experience and what you found out.
Well, oh gosh, so the name of the company I actually bought was a company called Pasta Fresca, and that was in 2001. And it was a small pasta manufacturer. Actually, we were operating in a building that was just about to be condemned, and we had to get out of that building. But I don't think that was the story you're referring to. The story I think you're referring to is that when I came from corporate America and I bought Fresca Foods, and I thought I had done all my due diligence in purchasing Fresca Foods. And I went to get some of my first loans from the business because when you're a small business, you get loans from the banks or
Yeah.
financing companies. And what I found during that time is that no matter how smart I thought I was doing all my corporate due diligence and everything I learned in corporations, uh, I found out that the partner that I had at the time actually entirely cheated me.
Hmm. Hmm.
So they came in and they actually uh, had no assets in the business for a very small business. So I was underwriting the entire business at the time, and I found out that not only did the partner not have any assets in the business, he really had nothing related to the business. So I found that I was underwriting all the debt of the company and everything that was associated with running a small business. That was my first entry into the business. The second day that then we were in the business, I found out that our biggest customer left us.
Wow.
So, and it was a small business, less than $1 million.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So that was kind of the entree to owning what is now called Fresca.
Yes.
Kind of going back to your early days, obviously there was something appealing to the business. At what point, and I'm sure several months, if not a year or two afterwards, did you think that, hey, there's a real business here and there's a real opportunity for you, your customers, the employees, and really to kind of make a difference? When was that and how did that kind of evolve?
So I don't know what your view of luck is, but when I bought Fresca Foods, we were on this decline. The business was almost bankrupt, and it was at a point where that the entrepreneur's story, as I told you when we first started, I had to make the decision between paying people and paying rent.
Right, right.
That was like the first couple months in business, and luck found us a customer that was in the natural food space, that was growing. And because I didn't know anything about the food business, I didn't say no. I was looking for any business at the time.
Mhm, mhm.
And that allowed the business sometimes having a different perspective allows you to create your own luck
Sure, sure.
because we don't know what we don't know. So we're willing to say yes more than we're willing to say no. Expertise sometimes causes us to say no
Hmm.
because we think
Hmm.
we know all the factors associated with something. I didn't know enough. And so what ended up happening was I said yes. And once we started saying yes to these customers that were really small natural foods customers that had no manufacturing um partners, once we started saying yes, we found that there was a real opportunity in this marketplace.
Mhm.
And I think after the first year in, to answer your question, I think what we realized is that, wow, or what I realized is like, wow, this is a huge market here. Like we can really grow this business.
Mhm.
And that's I think where the light bulb went off is that there was a untapped need in this marketplace that wasn't being met. And as you know, we are in Boulder County.
Yeah, yeah.
Boulder County is the epicenter to the natural foods industry. And
Mhm.
so that allowed us to really attract a lot of new customers immediately and allowed us to make for these very small businesses that were less than $1 million, maybe less
Sure.
than $500,000. But for at that stage, that was the engine that started to make us realize that there was a huge opportunity here.
Yeah. I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, and often they say that, it's a lonely place to be. And I know because I know you and I know the team buying this business, what you thought it was versus what it actually was, and going through really the bottom of the cycle of where this business ended up. I'm presuming one of the things that you did during that journey is build a team around you. And as you said yes to that customer, and then other customers came, and you make your own luck, is what I say. As Gary Player says, the more you practice, the more lucky you get. Talk to me about scaling the business. And one thing that we always think about, and I know that you're the first one to say you can only scale it with a team around you. Talk to me about how you are kind of developing the team, growing the team, and how instrumental that was as a component of growth.
You see a lot of businesses with your job. You see all different types of businesses. The last business I was in a large corporation,
Hmm.
and it was in high tech. It was in telecommunications, high tech. And we were going through the original dot com bust.
Yeah.
And my role at that time was to downsize the organization. I had a division of 3,000 people, and we had to take it to 1,500 folks. And so for about 18 months, all I did was downsize the organization. And if you've ever been through that exercise, it's really soul destroying. It's really hard.
Yeah.
I think it's harder for the person that has to stay and do it than the
Sure.
person that actually moves on. So when I came to Fresca, the one thing that was indelibly inked in my head was that people really are your most important asset. And I saw it by how that business crumbled when we let a ton of good people go.
Mhm.
And the other thing that corporations tried to do at the time was to incent people through stock options. And as the market collapsed, people's incentives went with it. And so from the very get-go, what I realized is that if we're going to do something meaningful, we have to make the work meaningful for the people that join the team. So from the get-go, I started with distributing the equity of the business to people that would come and help me grow it as partners. And I think being invested in people and then investing in people, both those things really was the secret sauce that brought in a group of individuals that we made into a team because we gave them equity, a sense of meaning and purpose to help us grow the company. And it was one by one building blocks. But over a period of a number of years, we built a very significant team. And the thing that we found is that people really just wanted something that provided purpose, provided meaning, provided a way to feel part of something bigger than themselves. And I think that was really what led to our growth because we had an invested team of folks, even when we were tiny, that was really there to help us continue to grow the company.
Yeah. That's an interesting perspective because, and I think you are different, at least in my eyes, in many ways. Certainly a bootstrapped entrepreneur coming into the business, but I suspect the background of corporate America also guided you in terms of, hey, the aspects of running a business, the aspects of running much larger businesses, but scaling it into building that team. So for you to, shift those equity and provide that as part of, hey, we're going to win together. I suspect it came from not just your entrepreneurial spirit, can be difficult for entrepreneurs, but your corporate background. Is that kind of how you think in terms of, and by the way, you were doing everything when you bought this business, and then everything was on your back, right? So you were absolutely 100% vested, as most entrepreneurs are.
I think the corporate experience, and you can probably vouch for this too, is something that not that many people, most people are employed by smaller or middle-sized companies. Large corporations provide an invaluable training ground for us. They have so many different training programs that you go through, from HR to marketing to teams to interaction, you name it. There is a training program for just about everything in corporations. And I think that what I got out of that experience was all this free training that I can bring into my own company. That's a starting point, though. Corporations do a lot of good that way, but I think once you get into your own business, you have to then decide how you're going to steer the ship. Like all those good training programs just give you a foundation in which to train others, but you have to actually build that meaning and purpose for an entire team. And I think that's what starts to separate companies. I think that what I found is it wasn't that we didn't have anything. I mean, I bought a company that was less than $1 million of revenue that we grew to, I would say, a reasonable size. You know how we did,
Yes.
And it was really through the ideas of the people that we brought on, people that we were wanting to engage, and that they contributed to that base. And we took that corporate, a lot of them came from corporate, a lot of them came from other environments. We took that mishmash of all those people and were able to create a system, a process, a team that others wanted to participate. And I think that was really the power behind everything, is that people, when they feel like they are committed to something, will do so much more. And I think corporations at a certain stage, people recognize that they may be a gun for hire.
Yeah. Talk to me about, we're obviously moving towards the journey of scaling Fresca as it's known now, building the team, the customers arriving. Food manufacturing is not a simple business, as we know, as you know, obviously. Was the journey of building and scaling growth, it's a loaded question. Was it a journey that kept going, or were there moments where, hey, do I go left? Do I go right? Some challenges in that journey. Maybe pinpoint one of them that had to allow you, the team, to kind of really reassess, okay, where are we going and how do we continue? And what does continuing actually mean for you?
So we were fortunate that when we started in with the natural foods industry, there really were no manufacturers helping challenger brands. And after about a year or two, when I told you that we got lucky, we were growing by 35% a year. And we continued that growth rate almost through the entire time I was at Fresca for 20 years. And we grew from a very small company to a reasonably sized company over that period of time. The one thing that I think that happens when you have success like that is you start believing that you're invincible.
Yeah.
We can do no wrong. It's going to keep growing. And we got to a point of our growth in 2012 where we had outstripped everything, outstripped our systems, outstripped the capability of our people, outstripped our space, outstripped our ability to move things back and forth. And it all coincided at one time. We were having our best year on record, thinking that nothing can go wrong. And I got the feeling like things were not firing right. And it was one day where I walked in the back of the building. We have our offices up front and our manufacturing plant in the back.
Yeah.
And I walked into the back of the building, and probably just because we had been busy, I hadn't been there for maybe, 4 weeks or whatever it is, usually got there more often. And I walked and it was like a disaster.
Mm.
I mean, just things all over the place, disorganized. And I had one of the sweetest people that worked for us come up to me, and he was a driver, one of our drivers. And he came up to me and he was just irate because he couldn't park his trucks. He
Yeah.
couldn't find a place to stop. He couldn't find things that were needed. We couldn't deliver stuff to be produced. And at that stage, I realized, uh-oh, we've got a big problem.
Mm.
And that problem between the systems and the space nearly collapsed the business.
Mm.
So we had our most high growth year. We're by anybody's measure doing phenomenal, and we had outstripped our entire capacity, people, space, systems. And I think that challenge was the one that almost our own success became our failure.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think in that stage, what I realize is that a business, for it to prosper, needs to continue to look beyond what it's doing today and the success it's having, and start to really plan for those next years, not abstractly like in a 3-year business plan, but in the people they bring on, in the space that it's looking at, in the systems that it has. Or else, if you are in a position where you are growing, you will eventually, at 35% growth a year, you're doubling every couple years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Systems and people cannot keep up.
So obviously you went through that journey, and then was there a pause and reflection point and saying, hey, the the foundation needs to be stronger for us to continue to go again? And you did that obviously, and went again. As I move you through the journey, and you and I can speak for a long time because it's such an interesting story you have. At some point, either professionally or somebody or an angel in your ear said, "Hey, maybe there's a time to ask yourself what next, right? In terms of your desire, which is a personal element as well as business goals." Maybe walk me through that, in terms of personally, what led you to, hey, should we think about an exit? Should we think about some capital transaction? And how easy or difficult was that for you personally going through the journey that you did?
Yeah, no. Let me break that down two ways. The first was the personal realization that I had a team of people that really believed in what we were doing. And I
Yeah.
think we all get to a point in our careers where you always have to, the stories about, training the person to take your job.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you're the CEO of the company, training that person to take your job means you have to exit your CEO job.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I kind of realized that if I didn't do that, that I was capping the organization,
Mm, mm.
that I had some really talented people and that I needed to continue to move them up and me in a different role. And I think in doing that, I sent a signal to the entire team that there's no job that we can't lift in the entire company. We created a team of people that did phenomenal work. And what happened with those people that did phenomenal work is eventually, like anything else that happens in life, is that we realized that we were not a victim of our own success, but limited by our own success.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this 35% growth rate was really the limit of our cash flow. And to do anything more, we really needed to bring on a partner.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
that's when the team collectively sat down and said, look, is this something we want to do? We own our own business. We had no outside investors. We had no uh, private equity or any other type of
Yeah.
investor. Only
Yeah.
bank debt was the way that we grew the company. But we recognized that the opportunities were way too large for what we could do with this type of 35% growth in bank debt. And so all of us got together and we made a decision that it's in the best interest of the company and the people that work there and the opportunity that's in front of us to look for investors. We looked for investors and we found fantastic partners after a long process. And I don't know, not how much you want me to go into that or kind of lead you through.
Yeah, we can, but one comment and observation, because I see obviously a lot of companies and we help companies to exit, and often it's really centered by the entrepreneur's need and so forth, which certainly has to be central in that perspective. But I think it goes back to the leadership team and the ethos you have, Todd, in developing a team mentality, not just by name, but we're vested together. And hearing your story, my sense is that it wasn't just Todd's decision, it's collectively the senior people. Are we still in the same boat and heading to the right direction, right? And I commend you for that because, that decision of exiting from a owner entrepreneur perspective certainly drives the opportunity and success for thereafterwards as well in terms of what happens with the team and the alignment of the team. So I just want to commend you on that. I know you had a couple of processes that you went through, and I often say going through an M&A process, and again, a leading question, it's a full-time second job,
Right.
right? Um, in that process that was successful, you'll always say, I suspect, that planning ahead, being prepared, having the right team is God's sense. But maybe talk about the preparation piece and how you were guided through that. Obviously, you were no novice. You came through corporate world, so you've seen it before. Maybe talk about the preparedness piece and then maybe walk into what you learned in that process that was still a bit of an aha moment
Yeah.
in that M&A process.
I think the whole thing became an aha moment. You work with companies too. The one thing I would tell any entrepreneur, there's a difference between building a business and selling a business.
Yeah.
Selling a business is not easy. We attempted to sell the business twice before the final time that we finally did it. And just because you want to sell the business doesn't mean that you have a buyer or that the time is right. And so what did we learn? The first process taught us that thank goodness the deal didn't occur because we would have learned that we sold too cheaply
Yeah. Yeah.
and that it wasn't the right time. And we got lucky because we actually the transaction failed because our revenue dropped at a certain stage, and the investor got nervous and backed out. And so it is a full-time process, but the first one taught us that here's all the steps. Here's the things that any investor is going to ask you. And you have to be prepared not only to answer those questions, but answer them in a timely way. The second thing it taught us is that the process is not kind. It is a process that if anything goes wrong, it will be used against you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we learned that timing and our ability to execute against our plan is going to be critical.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you can't do that, you can still complete a deal potentially, but the investor will take advantage of the situation to claw back whatever they can of value.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first two did not occur because of mistakes on our side of not understanding those basics. By the time we learned that, we had also learned that things that we could do with our business to make it more appealing for investors. And so in the third time, when we went into the deal, we were able to take all those learnings and take growth that we could show happening quarter over quarter
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
ensure that we keep an investor engaged and not trying to take advantage of any misstep on our part. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
was the biggest learning is that you're not just because you want to sell doesn't mean you can.
Yeah. 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 In that process, we were certainly working together, but again, going through your journey, many journeys, there's so many decisions that have to be made, Todd, right? And by the way, you have a full-time job of running not only you, but the team running the current business.
Right.
Walk me through the human aspect of yourself and the team of being inundated with information requests and questions from so many different angles. You've got your team of advisors that are helping you out. You've got your day-to-day business, which is ever challenging now than ever before. And then you've got an M&A process, right? Walk me through the CEO's head of how does that feel on an average day, and then, going home and going, oh my gosh, I'm going to do it again.
So I labeled it as a marathon sprint.
Yeah.
You're it's a marathon, but you are sprinting every day. And the one thing that I think that happens and that is really important in the process, fatigue is a constant companion.
Yeah.
People get tired. The requests don't stop, especially when you're selling a meaningfully sized business. The diligence process is very detailed.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you don't have a team that can keep up, you get buried.
Yeah.
And then it
Yeah.
almost seems insurmountable to try to get through the process.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what you end up being is equal parts cheerleader, equal parts understanding when the stress is too much and say, you know what, take tonight off.
Yeah.
Go out
Yeah.
to dinner with your wife or husband or whatever. Get out. We don't want to see you. You have to learn to read the tea leaves through the process because it is it's a constant sprint to the goal.
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
sprint lasts for us, the transaction lasted 6 months.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when we signed up for it, it was supposed to be 45 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the disconnect between people's time and the length of the process, trying to keep people engaged is really the hardest part of the whole thing. I think, though, what happens in the process is that people realize that there is a greater good to be had
Hmm.
and for themselves and particularly at Fresca for our team. We had
Hmm.
built a company from, I think when I started was 12 or 15 people, and we're close to 500 people today. And you
Amazing.
realize that that's who you're taking care of.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
the people that you're taking care of. And I think we were all really motivated to be able to create a better environment, one that we could have the resources and the support to continue to grow those people's career. I think we all have this sense that over the next generations, that Fresca will be there for their children and their
Yeah.
children's
Yeah.
children. And
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
really satisfying thing.
Yeah. Well, it's very clear you talk about the team. I'm going to throw the spotlight on you, my friend Todd. Was there a moment that Todd's on the third process? Is this ever going to happen? I'm exhausted. I just want to go in a closet or whatever. Talk to me about some of the emotional elements that you yourself went through.
It's really funny. Like the whole time, I think I was trying to be the emotional steward,
Yeah, you
you
certainly
know.
were. That's what I found. You were the coolest guy in the room.
And you realize that if you show that break,
Yeah.
that other people will feel that. But there was one time towards the end of the transaction, and we were going through what now is a very esoteric point. And I was looking at a few people on my team, and they were like, I can't sign up for that. I can't sign up for that. I can't
Yeah.
sign up for that. And I realized, like, oh my goodness, like we are not going to be able to sell the business.
Yeah.
And we've been 5 months in this process, and that fact hit me, and the energy just drained. And I think everybody saw it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think when that happened, it sparked everybody. Like
Hmm.
that's when you really realize you have a team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when they see you as that emotional front man and you lose a step, you lose that energy, I think they realize, okay, we've gone a bridge too far. We can make this happen. And it galvanized the team to get to the last step. And
Yeah.
so I think through this process, everybody hits that emotional wall. For me, it was the point where my team told me they couldn't do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I knew that if they said they couldn't do it, I couldn't sell the business. I wasn't going to go against their wishes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that moment was a reckoning for us that we said, now comes the time that is, they realize, okay, look, if he's at that point, maybe we have to reconsider and think this through. And I think everybody rallied, and then actually it was a week or two more, and the deal was done.
Yeah. So the deal was done, and then you're presenting it to the ranks of 500 people, and you had 12 people when you started. Talk to me about the emotions of, because you're a team player, you think about others more than you. There's two elements. One is presenting that to your team and the perspective that you had about the team and the care and need for them to be taken care of. And then the second piece is, what did Todd think in that moment for himself?
So the first thing that hit me when we did this was a joy.
Hmm.
And it was a joy because you knew that you would be able to guarantee the success of the business and the people that had built it.
Yeah.
And there's no greater feeling than that joy of knowing it
Hmm.
perpetuates. And there was a feeling personally of relief.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know, joy and relief probably have similar emotions to them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They work in similar ways. And I experienced both of that. The feeling like the people are taken care of, and the feeling like the burden of having to take care of them had been lifted.
Hmm. Hmm.
And both those kind of came together at the same moment. And it's a really strange feeling because you spent your whole life in the service of others.
Yeah.
And for the first time in my life in entrepreneurship, that burden had lifted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a very strange feeling. And it doesn't really hit you. You intellectually know it and you feel it, but it took a long time for me to really realize that I had changed the trajectory of the business. I had changed what the business was capable of. And it felt good because I knew I left it in the stewardship of hands that can really grow this for the people that have built it today. So that journey kind of came together with that joy and relief were kind of synonymous in that moment.
I'll ask you a question as we kind of move towards wrap up, Todd. And I've interviewed many CEOs, entrepreneurs who've sold their business, and owners owning their business, it's their third arm, their third leg, it's their identity, it's their everything, right? There's no work-life balance. That is life, right? Was there any regrets or what am I going to do afterwards? You still obviously have a continuing role at Fresca, so it's not like you're gone and you're sunbathing and so forth. And I know who you are. You've got a lot of interesting things that's on your mind. Um, any of that came to you either in the journey of exiting or now, or again, is it still the joy of, hey, I achieved with the team, which is what you'll always say, but now there's another journey for me to do other things eventually.
So, when I told you I a few years ago, I kind of stepped back and put this team in place.
Yeah,
I had realized that I couldn't do this forever. And I had seen, we had helped a number of companies, entrepreneurs, CEOs exit, sold to either venture capital, private equity, strategic investors.
yeah,
And I saw a lot of those folks being really unhappy being out of the game.
yeah,
Like there's a thrill. Even if you say, oh, the hassles and I want to get the money and I want to have my financial security. Once people were out of the game, I saw that lack of purpose.
yeah,
And so I started preparing myself years ahead to be out of the game. I put the team in place. I went back, I got a graduate degree. I got my PhD, as you're aware, studying something I was really interested in, with the idea that when this day comes, I don't want to be that person that is longing to get back into the past. I want to have something squarely pointed to the future of the business, the future of my team, and my own personal future of the things that I can do for the next chapter. And so that's why I got the degree, so that I could start to think through what I want to do for the next stage of my life. And so when I left in the capacity that I was in, there was an opportunity to create something new. And
Mhm.
I think that all of us, if we look at possibilities that are in front of us, not the possibility that was behind us,
Yeah,
makes us a happier person going forward.
yeah, yeah.
And I think I was fortunate enough to have such a good team of people to work with that I felt confident could run the business. They afforded me the opportunity to prepare myself for this next stage of life. And I'm thrilled. I have a great role with Fresca. We're growing. There's lots of interesting projects. And I have the opportunity to start to create something new for myself because I invested in the team, which helped me invest in myself.
I'll end up, Todd, by using your own word, joy. It was an immense joy for us to work with you. It's an immense joy for me to have the ability to walk you through this journey and hear your story. And the joy of what true, in my words, legacy means. And you certainly have built a phenomenal legacy of Fresca, not just from a business perspective, but the outcomes and how people eat healthier and the joy of, the 12 people that you had at the inception to 500. So joy is the word that I'll end up with. Thank you very much, Todd. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.